Welcome to the Talent Time Podcast, featuring entrepreneur and philanthropist Terry Tallen and longtime award-winning journalist Tom Brew. We'll be telling you stories from around the country about sports, business, philanthropy, and mentoring. It's a full season of podcasts right here at TalentTime.com. And welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. This is Tom Brew, and welcome to another episode of the Talent Time Podcast. And this one's really special. We're here at Heathrow Country Club in Lake Mary, Florida. And Terry Tallen, this is going to be one heck of a special show. Today, we get to meet your old football coach, Lee Corso, and sit down and talk to Coach and tell a whole bunch of stories from all your 45 years together.
We sure do. It's wonderful to be back here in Orlando. You know, Tom, as I mentioned, I lived in Orlando back in the 80s, and I got to do some things with Coach Corso back then, which you'll all see on the show today. This is going to be a very special show, and we're very grateful to Coach Corso, my longtime coach and lifelong friend, for coming out and shooting this with us today.
All right, well, let's go inside the beautiful Heathrow Country Club and sit down and have a nice, long, hour-long chat with Coach Lee Corso, ESPN, College GameDay, Mr. College Football.
All right,
let's
Tom,
go have some fun. Welcome back inside the Heathrow Country Club, and we're really thrilled to be in beautiful Lake Mary, Florida today, and very happy to have with us Coach Lee Corso and Terry Tallen. It's been 4 decades plus since we were all together back in Indiana back in the 70s. Terry, Coach Corso is certainly your coach at Indiana, so must be thrilled to be catching back up with him today.
Oh, absolutely, Coach. It's an honor to be here with you today. Beautiful Orlando. We've known each other for over 45 years. I still remember the first time Coach Corso came to our house in Hamilton, Ohio, and recruited me, and that was it. Once he came, that was it. I wasn't looking at anybody else.
Well, I tell you, it's my pleasure, and welcome to my home. This is my home, for over 30 years, and I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, well, Coach, we're going to do this in 3 segments for this interview, and the first part of what we wanted to talk about was your time in Indiana with Terry back then. Since he just brought it up about recruiting him, and what the heck was it you saw in this guy?
He was a tremendous worker, a hard worker, and really dedicated to the game. And I think a lot has to do with he comes from Hamilton, Ohio, and all those kids from around Ohio are very, very good to playing college football. They learn their leadership. I think that's what Terry was quiet, was strong, tough. He's the kind of leader. He was the only, with one exception, he and Tim McVeigh were the only 2-time captains I ever had in Indiana. And Tim is his son is Sean McVeigh in Los Angeles Rams. So he's not doing too bad either. But he and Terry were two-time captains in my team, and probably the best leaders I ever had.
Yeah, and Coach, I know it's always been a big thing for you in regards to getting your players to work hard and having good team leadership, and he was a heck of a captain, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, but by example, and it was quiet, he was tough. He in the locker room, he would be very quiet, but he very, very strong leadership when it comes from him. But I think, again, I don't know if Terry can talk to it, but I think it comes from that Ohio background of being a football player in that state of Ohio. There was something about those guys that made them good leaders. Wasn't it, Terry?
I think you're absolutely right, and that's why you recruited that area so heavily. Tim McVeigh was a great role model. He was a great example. He was 3 years older than me. He was from Dayton, Ohio, so we grew up very close together. Joe Norman was also he was from northeastern Ohio. Joe was one of the greatest linebackers ever played at Indiana University. He was also a great leader and learned a lot from those guys. So Coach brought in the right guys, that would teach the rest of us, what it meant to be, an Indiana football player, and through your lens and the way that you recruited for the program. I mean, you recruited so many of us, and we had a very good team, right?
Yes.
But we all came there. So when we were recruited, I think the team was 4-7. We didn't care. We're going to Indiana. We're going to play for Coach Corso, and we're going to win a bowl game. And that's what we did. 2 years later, we came in 77, 79 to win the bowl game.
I think his group was a group that saved me. I was about to get fired, and then his group and Tim McVeigh's group were the group that came in and started to win. And then I survived. I should be in the Hall of Fame for just surviving 10 years as Indiana football coach. It's a tough job.
Well, that was a great group of kids that came in with Terry though as well too. And Tim Clifford, he was an Ohio kid too, right? He was from Cincinnati.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah.
Coleraine.
Yeah, and
Great quarterback.
it always helps when you have a good quarterback on your team. It helps you win some games,
Let
doesn't
me
it?
tell you, he was the most valuable player in the Big Ten as a junior. And that's great. It was only one other player from Indiana done that. It was 1947. But Clifford was the most valuable player and on a bowl team.
Yeah, but I know you and Tim have been close forever too, and that whole Ohio connection. When we had them back, in 2019 for the 40-year reunion, you couldn't make it. Of course, you were busy with your ESPN job that day, but it was great to see all those guys back together. And it was that Ohio connection has always gone a long way.
It was the difference between their Indiana football and regular is Ohio. Because it was not far from Ohio. And most of those guys, Woody Hayes wouldn't want them, and I got them anyhow. They were just good enough to play against Woody Hayes.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, part of that too, like you've always prided yourself on having good assistant coaches that sort of raise that talent level individually of all those guys anyway to compete like that. And
the secret of my coaching career was the assistants that I had. They were some great coaches.
yeah.
That's a point to hone in on also, because you really did bring in great assistant coaches. And I remember in some of our early meetings, Coach would talk about the organizational chart, and that you came in and said, I am the CEO of this organization, and here are my vice presidents and presidents and so forth. And we went down the list about the different coaches, and I thought that was a really neat approach. And one of the things that Coach did for all of us, we've heard this from many of your former players, many of your current colleagues on ESPN, is that you've helped us all become more professional people.
Thank you.
You go about things in a very, very professional manner, a very precise manner, and you taught us how to go about our business as professional people. And I greatly thank you for that, and it's made a huge difference in my life and many others.
And the one thing I always preach to my players, never prostitute your integrity to get a job or to keep one. Never prostitute your integrity to get a job or to keep one. And if you work for somebody who wants you to cheat or something like that, get out of there. Get out of there quick. But never prostitute your integrity to get a job or to keep one. Was the number one thing that I have lived by. I try to get my players to the same thing.
And now, through your inspired examples, I say that to other people. I give you full credit. But we say that to other people. And what else you did too, you brought, and I've got the P's, the R's, and I'll dot the I. Passion, persistence, preparation, perspiration, respect, resiliency, right? We had some years there where we had to be resilient.
I definitely.
And then we dot the I with integrity.
Yeah, and then Coach, your 10 years in Indiana, the highlight of that was the 1979 season where you won 7 games in the regular season. It was best Indiana had done in more than a decade. And then you guys topped it all off with a tremendous Holiday Bowl victory against Brigham Young that was undefeated at the time and finished ranked, I think, 16th in the country, for the first time in decades. What do you remember most about that 1979 group?
Well, I remember we had been losing so much, it wasn't any fun. But that was the one year the guys got together and decided to have some fun. And we had a lot of fun. It was kind of like great football players, but also having fun. And in the Holiday Bowl, that was a sensation. Brigham, BYU was number 8 in the country, undefeated, and had one of the best football teams that Lavelle Everidge ever had. And we were fortunate to beat them 38-37.
It's one of my all-time favorite games ever. I mean, from an excitement level, that was great.
Well, I'll tell you a true story about the game. They got down to the game, and it was about 15 seconds to go, and they lined up about the 20-yard line to kick a field goal. And this kid had never missed a field goal. He's a fantastic kicker. And Father Jim Higgins, Catholic priest, was at every game that I was the coach. So I walked over to Father and I said, Father, it's you against 200 million Mormons. That guy's got to miss the field goal. Can he do it? He said, no problem. He said, taken care of. The guy kicked it, went, missed it. And I said, oh God, thank you very much. He said, you're welcome. Father Jim Higgins was the reason we beat by you. Oh man.
Yeah.
That was one of the great stories.
Oh, yeah.
That's like in Indiana. It's a true story, but it's also in Indiana folklore now. Part of that too is I had injured my elbow against Purdue in the final game of the season, so I had to play in the Holiday Bowl with this huge cast on that the NCAA and the Big Ten approved. It must have weighed 20 pounds. It was good for pass rushing, but Coach came up to me that week before the game and he said, Terry, I'm going to take you out on any punts, any kicks, any field goals, because he said, I can't have a guy with an arm and a half in there trying to block the kick. So he said, I'm going to pull you out. I love you. You're my captain. No issue, but I can't have a guy with an arm and a half. Well, the guy that he put in may have blocked it. It may have been squibbed. It may have been divine intervention. But
divine intervention.
Divine intervention.
Without question. And let me tell you something. BYU was really a good football team. They practiced real hard in pads, and we had no curfew. I didn't have no curfew in the team, and I kept saying, the only thing will change, I want you to change your shirts to my breakfast. I don't want to see you come in with the same shirt I know you've been out all night. And then we had practice, and we won that ball game. It was a great, and really, without a question, it was the highlight of my life.
There you go. That was certainly a wonderful time. Obviously, Terry was a big part of that team, but he was kind of an undersized guy on your defense there. But he kind of made up for it with a little bit of heart and determination, didn't he?
The toughness. You can't coach toughness, and that's what he had. He tough. And I don't care what he was, what his position was. He was tough, physically, mentally, but mentally tough too. And that's why he was one of my leaders.
There you go.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
That's true.
What, Terry? What's your best story of how Coach treated you as a player?
He treated me with great respect, great integrity. An example was my senior year. I had asked Coach, because I went in as a linebacker. Although when I got there, they scared me. They gave me number 62, and I'm like, oh my God. Everybody wanted me to play guard. Ohio State recruited me to guard. Michigan, Indiana says you can be a linebacker. So I said, I want to be a linebacker in Indiana. I want to play for Coach Corso. So I go in, and they give out the numbers. And towards the end of the line, I'm like, oh my God, I'm number 62. I called my brother. I said, they give me 62. He said, couldn't they give me an athlete's number? So anyway, I started at linebacker, and Coach was kind enough to move me to nose tackle my freshman year, because we had two very good linebackers that were juniors. So it gave me a chance to start earlier. So I ended up starting my sophomore year as a undersized nose tackle. And I wanted to play linebacker because I wanted to play in the NFL. That was my dream. It didn't work out, but that was my dream, and in certain ways I've used that as fuel for my fire through my business career. But I went to him before my senior year, and I said, Coach, I'll play any position you want, but if you can find it to make sense for the team, I'd like to play middle linebacker. I'd like to go back to linebacker. So Terry, you're my linebacker.
Yeah.
So we go into the season, and I started at linebacker, and we had some injuries at nose tackle. And I said, if Coach asked me to go back to nose tackle, I'll go back. Happy. I love playing that position. I just wanted to see if I could be better positioned. And never said a word to me. So we made a deal. Deal's a deal. So that's something I'll never forget.
I want you to remember one thing. Never prostitute your integrity to get a job or to keep it.
That's right.
And Terry, I think one thing our viewers will love to be able to laugh at is when they see nose tackles these days that are 300 pounds plus, remind everybody how much you weighed when you played nose tackle in the Big Ten in Indiana.
Okay, so my sophomore year I was 215-pound nose tackle, and we had some good games. My junior year I was about a 228-pound nose tackle, and one of the things I'll say that I had 73 tackles that year, and I was double teamed 40% of the time. And now a lot of the top linebackers in Division I are 70, 75, 80 tackles. So it was, I enjoyed that position, but I thought if I wanted to go to the next step, I'd have to go where there's a little bit better size.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you spent 10 years in Bloomington, from 1973 to 1982. Thoroughly enjoyed your time there, I know. But what was it about Bloomington that you enjoyed so much?
Small town. Everybody was part of Indiana. It was a small town, and I love the fact that they was pulling for Indiana and when they went to school, and I just love my time in Bloomington. My kids were all raised there. My son Steve played for me at Indiana at football, but my children were raised there. I loved them. I hated it. It really hurt me when they fired me, because I liked Indiana and they liked me, and all of a sudden we don't like you. You're gone. I said, okay, that's quick. I'll go. But I enjoyed myself. But I did one thing that was smart. Now, nobody knows this. At the end of the Holiday Bowl, the athletic director came and asked me, what do you want to stay in Indiana? Because Stanford had contacted me about going. And I said, I want to raise my assistant coach, and I want a 3 years extension. I want to coach until I'm 50. And then if you decide to fire me, I don't want to be one of those coaches that get 2 pays, I mean, 1 check. You pay me until the contract's over and it's a deal. And that's exactly what happened. Because when I got fired in Indiana, I was getting 2 paychecks, one from work and one from where I was, and one from Indiana for the last 3 years. I don't know, that really was something.
That's a nice way to do it.
And we were very saddened when that happened, and you're still missed in Bloomington. I go back regularly, as you know, with the business school and with the football program, and your name always comes up, and people always have a great story about you and a great memory. And you know, one of them, and I know you've heard this a million times, but Coach would do a lot of TV. As you know, he's had a great career in television, and you did that commercial for the season tickets for Halloween week, and music comes on, there's a coffin, and what's going on, and everybody's looking, and all of a sudden the coffin pops up, and Coach Corso pops out and says, "We ain't dead yet, buy season tickets."
That's right.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, well, I tell you what, you've been around college football for 60, 70 years now, from back in your playing days at Florida State. I mean, to coach 10 years in anyone's school is a pretty rare thing these days, and even it was back then too. I mean, obviously in the Big Ten you were battling with Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler, and they were there a long time, but most of your other counterparts, there weren't too many of them that lasted 10 years there anywhere. So job well done, and enjoyed, everyone in Bloomington enjoyed your time there, and I know you did too. And I know all of us who are Indiana grads love it when you can still tell Indiana stories on College Game Day now and again, and we all appreciate it. So when we get back, that's what we're gonna talk about next. Coach Corso is Mr. College Football these days, and for all of us on Saturday mornings start with College Game Day. And when we come back for part 2 here, we're gonna talk a little bit about your television career and all of it that's made you famous, and might even have to tell a few headgear stories. So we'll be back right after this.
Welcome to the Newcomb family. My name is Jim Poole. I'm the president and CEO of Solace Life Sciences, the neuroscience company that makes Newcomb. And what is it? It's simply a technology that when you're feeling stressed or you're not sleeping well, whatever it is that life brings you, Newcomb is a tool that predictably, safely, and reliably is going to take good care of you. Find a comfortable place. Put the disc on, eye mask, choose your track. You're going to lie down. What's going to happen? Your mind's going to wander. But here's how you'll know Newcomb's working. You'll begin to feel your body separate from your mind. Your mind's going to wander, and your body's going to feel heavy, and your respiration's going to slow down. And you're going to go somewhere where your mind just wanders and your body heals. And then at some point, you just kind of come to. Simply take off the eye mask, stop the track, take the disc off, and off you go.
Indiana football tickets are on sale now. Catch the action this fall at Memorial Stadium as head coach Tom Allen leads the Hoosiers in a battle against 7 different home opponents this season. Purchase your tickets today for the home opener against the Illinois Fighting Illini on Friday, September 2nd. For more information, visit IUHoosiers.com. Support the Hoosiers in 2022. Go IU.
Welcome back inside the beautiful clubhouse here at Heathrow Country Club for our second segment here on the show on the Terry Tallen podcast with Coach Corso. And Coach, you were just saying, this is the one and only podcast you've ever done, right?
I've heard about a podcast. I wondered if I could ever do one. And I finally got a chance to do my first podcast with Terry Tallen. And that's, Terry, that's the reason I'm here. I don't do these things off season, and you're the reason I'm doing this. Because my former captain is a great guy.
There we go. We appreciate that greatly. Coach, this second segment here, we want to talk about your television career, which is, like you often like to say on TV, you're undefeated. As an analyst, you haven't lost a game in 35 years. But before we jump into all the ESPN stuff, though, we wanted to talk kind of quickly. When you were at Indiana, you did your football show there every week, and there were many of them were just hilarious. You've never really seen a camera you didn't like anyway. But when you were doing those TV shows back in Indiana, you loved doing those every week, didn't you?
And the thing that bothered me the most is nobody knew about my coaching record. They loved my television show. I said, well, I don't know about that, but I enjoy doing it. And Terry told the story about I was on Halloween night, and I said, I was in a casket I did the show. I said, we ain't dead yet, and closed that casket in a television show. I really enjoyed doing it, and it was a way for me to get to the public and show them a different side of me.
Yeah. And of course, you coached in the USFL for a year, and then that shut itself down. So then ESPN came calling right after that.
And there was a job opening at ESPN, and so it was me and another guy for the job. So they flew me up there, and so I went in for my interview, and he went for the interview. So we got on a plane, flying back. He's a friend of mine. And I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I told him I'd only work half of Thursdays, and I wanted a private plane, and I was going to work only 3/4 of the season. I said, I don't know about you, I don't know if you're going to get the job, but I know one damn thing, I'm going to get it. I told the guy I'd do it for nothing. I told the ESPN, my vice president, I said, I'll do the job for nothing, I just want a chance. So I said, I got the job, and that's the reason, because I think the other guy would have got the job, but he had about 10 demands. I had nothing, no demands, just a chance.
And thankfully, of course, ESPN has been good to you. You didn't have to work for nothing.
Let me tell you something. May 16, 2010, I walked out to get the newspaper, and I walked back to my house, and I sat down, and my wife Betsy looked at me, and she said, I think he had a stroke. My face had been distorted here. I couldn't talk. And I never forget, I walked out there and I walked back and I felt woozy. And I think I had the stroke overnight because I didn't think they caught it fast enough. So I went to emergency and I went to and they said I had a clot on my left side. And they said, okay, with the left side, it'll affect your speech and a little bit, but it won't affect the way you move or think. So I sat back and I said, I can't believe it. I make a living talking and I can't talk. So I just went back and I said, I started doing rehab, more rehab, months of rehab, and I got back and I made the show. But let me tell you something. If there's really something to say about ESPN, they could have done it. I couldn't talk, and I was talking in his head. And they gave me a chance. They could have dumped me right there, but they didn't. So that speaks well of ESPN. Somebody asked me, why have I been at ESPN so long? I said, that's why. Because they stayed by me when nobody else wanted me and I couldn't talk. They didn't dump me. Yeah. They kept me.
And so now it's 35 years you've been there.
35 years.
When College GameDay started too in 1987, ESPN had no idea if that was going to be successful or not.
Yeah. I was on the first College GameDay with Bino Cook and Tim Brando. when the three of us on the show, and we used to do about a half an hour show. It was sponsored by King Kong at midnight, you know. And we had no sponsors, nothing. And it was a start. I started with Tim and Bino, and it was a great experience for me.
Hey, Coach, was Terry Lingler involved with that also?
Yes, he was one of our producers, and in fact I saw him there one day. He lived in near Chicago or something, and he was a part of our show, but he wasn't on the air. He was behind the scenes.
Well, I met him through one of your former players, my teammate, great friend Eric DeBoard.
Oh yeah.
And he's actually going to come out to California and visit me in a few weeks. His son is an actor, and they're doing a musical up in Sonoma County, and he and I are working on some business things in Indianapolis, and he said, I produced Coach Corso's first show. And it's like, oh my goodness, what a small world story.
He was instrumental in keeping me at ESPN too. He was a good guy.
And of course, the popularity of that show just took off quickly. And then when you guys started making the road trips every Saturday and doing that on campuses, it sort of became a bit of a cult thing, right? Everybody, you see thousands of people with you guys every Saturday morning.
The first one we went to was Florida State Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, it was 1 versus 2, and that was the first college game day we did. We did it in the confiscation center, and it was people on ESPN said, I think it's a pretty good deal. When they started going on the move.
Yep, and that was Florida State's first national championship season.
And
Notre Dame beat them that day.
On a forward pass, Charlie Ward threw the ball. The guy deflected it in the end zone last play of the game. So that was, I remember it like it was yesterday.
I remember it too. As an Indiana guy, I grew up in Northwest Indiana, so I'm one of the few Irish Catholics from Northern Indiana who's not a Notre Dame fan. So.
I'm a Notre Dame fan too because I'm Catholic. But listen, I'll tell you a great story. Since you're Catholic, you'll understand. On Thursday night, I did the show and I did some things. And I said some bad things about Notre Dame. So the next day, I go to church. I go to confession. And knock on him. He says, I said, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. He said, no absolution. I said, what's the matter, Father? He said, no absolution. I said, what's the matter, Father? He said, you talked bad about Notre Dame Thursday night, and I'm giving no absolution. I was only kidding. He said, young man, you don't care about Notre Dame football. I have never once picked against Notre Dame. So.
I'll tell you my favorite priest story.
Higher authority.
I'll tell you my favorite priest story when it comes to praying for football victories. A priest I grew up with was a huge Notre Dame fan in Northwest Indiana, but he was also a huge Chicago Bears fan. So he says, there's a good reason why we go to church on Sunday instead of Saturday. He says, we don't need any help for Notre Dame, but we need all the prayers we can get for our Chicago Bears. Yeah, but that was all good. So then, that was in the late 80s when that started, and you've traveled the country doing that. Like, where are your favorite college spots when it comes to stopping for game day?
Eugene, Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. The show is at 9 o'clock ESPN, Eastern Standard. It's 6 o'clock in the morning in Oregon, and there's college. They've been there for hours and hours and hours. Thousands of people, and they're my favorite people. And the Oregon Duck is my favorite. He's crazy. We ride motorcycles with him. He's been crazy on the set. The Oregon Duck is my favorite. Everybody asks me what's the favorite mascot in. It's the Oregon Duck.
Coach, do they get a new duck every year, or is that the same guy?
No, they graduated. Mikey was the first one that I know, and Mikey was he's the funniest guy. He had a great sense of humor, and then he graduated, and then he coached again. And
you've obviously said you've become very familiar with the Brutus Buckeye headgear over time, and that's one of them. And so, what are your favorite Big Ten spots?
One of my favorites is Buckeyes, because it started there. It happened on a Friday afternoon, and Kirk Street down on television, and Brutus, the Buckeye, walked by, and I said, You know what? If you got me that headgear and I put it on, I picked Ohio State and nobody, I wouldn't have to say anything. So he said, no, but Allison, his fiancée at that time, was a cheerleader. And he got her, she is the one that got the first Buckeye head. I mean, not the Kurt, he takes credit for it, but it was Allison went to the guy and got the Buckeye. So we got tomorrow, the next day, I put on the Buckeye head, and the crowd went crazy, the trunk went crazy, and I said, I think I got a shtick here. I think I'll do it again.
Yeah, and it worked, and it has worked.
Oh.
And some of my favorite moments, though, are when you have to put on the head of the visiting team when you're somewhere. Because you hear a nice, round, loud boom.
Oh, man. My favorite is when at Tuscaloosa, Alabama. LSU was playing Alabama. And it got to be my turn. And I said, they started playing Roll Tide. Roll Tide. And I said, Go Tigers. I put the Tiger head on. And LSU beat them that year. 9-7. And that was a great win for me. But that was the one time I really got a lot of trouble.
I remember that game. And a couple of things that are always that have become part of college football legacy now is always we get every week, oftentimes, not so fast, my friend.
That started.
So I always wanted to do that to you.
That started with Greg James. Greg James was on the show, and we used to say certain things, and he used to get on my skin a little bit, and he'd say some things, and I said, "Not so fast, my friend." And then he left for CBS, and Kirk Herbstreit took his place, and has been a legend since. But that's the way it started with Greg James.
Yeah, and then for years too, you always had your little number 2 pencil.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do because I work for Dixon Ticonderoga Pencil Company, and we don't. You get all kinds of publicity from that number 2 pencil. I don't have it now because when I'm on ESPN.
Yeah, and then of course you mentioned Nino Cook and Tim Brando way back in the day, and Chris Fowler and Reese and Kirk and Desmond and all that stuff. You've thoroughly enjoyed your Saturday mornings with a whole crew of great people all these years, haven't you?
My favorite is Kirk Herbstreit because he's like my second son. I have great respect for him. He's a tremendous sports. He's probably the best all-around guy doing on television now. But and there's a funny story about that. I'm deaf in one left ear. And the Lee Fitting, one of our ESPN guys, said, the reason is I'm from Herbstreit talking so much. I got deaf, but Herbstreit talks so much while we're on the air, he blocked my left ear, so I can't hear it now.
Terry, how much fun has it been through the years, just when you get up like all the rest of us watching college game day and seeing your coach on there every Saturday?
It makes my Saturday. It makes thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people Saturday. People look forward to it. Now that's probably millions of people that look forward to that, look up to it, and the viewership. I bet if they could track it, the viewership is at its highest point in the last 2 minutes of that show, and that's what everybody stays and watches for. I mean, the commentary is great, the analysts are great. Kirk Herbstreit is the on-screen chemistry that you have. We can see the friendship, and that there's true care, and family. Like you and I have a very, very close relationship. Also for Kirk Herbstreit, we want to thank you on behalf of myself as well as the Hoosier Nation for some of the kind words that he said last week about our locker room and our facilities. He mentioned how he also mentioned Purdue and Northwestern. We'll give it full credit and proper quote, but that our facilities, these 3 schools, were better than what USC and UCLA have, and may have been part of the catalyst of them joining the Big Ten because of the additional money that they'd get from that. I know Tom's going to talk a little bit more about that in the backside of this, but when you see Kirk tell him, I'm very appreciative for him saying that. I'm very grateful.
He's a good human being. It shows.
And we grew up very close to each other. He was also from the Dayton area, Centerville.
Yeah. And one last question for you before we take another break. Obviously, being in Indiana for all your years, it still means a lot to you. And I thought it was great in 2019 and 2020 when Indiana had a couple of really great back-to-back years under Tom Allen, where you guys were able to talk about Indiana football just a little bit there. So I'm sure for you it must have been great to see Indiana have some success those 2 years back-to-back and win some big games.
It was great because I never did win as many as he did, and that was great. And I think it was one thing, one of the reasons they have gotten so much better is this man donated the building that put Indiana football. That was a big thing that I never had. That they had somebody to highlight Indiana football. Thanks to Terry Tallen, they have one now. And I tell you one thing, they're not bad. If they hadn't got anybody hurt that year, they'd been real good. But they got no depth. That's hard to do. Schools like Indiana, you can get some first line players who are good, but you can't get into depth. And that's why he's come a long way.
Yeah, and there's, we said it last fall when it was going on, that there doesn't matter the name on the front of the jersey. When you're starting your fourth string quarterback and 2 walk-on running backs, it's hard to beat anyone.
That's right.
Yeah, but so we certainly we're not far away from college game day, heading back, and so that first weekend, I know you mentioned that you're excited already for your first weekend of games.
Thursday night, we're going to the West Virginia-Pittsburgh game at Pittsburgh and do a show, and then drive that night down to Columbus. It's with Notre Dame versus Ohio State in the opener, and it should be a great ball game because Notre Dame's going to be pretty good, but Ohio State's going to be sensational. I'm going to give it hit 10. Ohio State is my pick to win it all this year.
Not so fast.
Not so bad. I pick them, not Alabama, not Georgia, not Clemson, Ohio State. And I'm saying this now because I don't know if you show this, but they don't show it until the first part of the game. First show, I'm doing Ohio State's going to win the national championship this year.
There you go.
We can say you heard it here first from Coach Corso.
That's right. You watch the first game. The first show is August 27th. It's a preseason show, and I will say then, as I say now, Ohio State's going to win the national championship.
So you and the Brutus Buckeye headgear are going to get a lot of time together.
Finally, get some what we want.
There you go. Good, Coach. Yeah, everybody will tell you what. For all of us, I mean, our Saturdays wouldn't be the same without you on there. So we're looking forward to year 36 this year. Have you on there, and hopefully we'll see a lot of good games all year long for you.
I keep full of them.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll wrap things up with segment 3. We're gonna take a tour around the history of college football a little bit with Coach Corso and talk about some things back in the days when he was the Sunshine Scooter at Florida State, and with Burt Reynolds and a lot of the great people you've met in college football, dating all the way back to the 1950s when you were a player. And we'll talk about all that and wrap it up right after this.
Newcom is neuroscience. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a bedtime story. There are a number of competitors in this space, and once you use Newcom, you'll find out who the real deal is. You'll benefit greatly from it. And don't be fooled by slick advertising. Go with the science. Science is where it's at.
I had 20 minutes of absolute escapism, peace. I mean, I was in like a twilight. I didn't know where I was or what was happening, but I never wanted it to end.
I can laugh with people, I don't get irritated, I don't get frustrated.
It is accessible, it's affordable, it's something that everyone can do.
And here they come, and Indiana got to him.
Indiana football is back.
Hoosier fans, Indiana football tickets are on sale now. Catch the action this fall at Memorial Stadium as head coach Tom Allen leads the Hoosiers in a battle against 7 different home opponents this season. Purchase your tickets today for the home opener against the Illinois Fighting Illini on Friday, September 2nd. For more information, visit IUHoosiers.com. Support the Hoosiers in 2022. Go IU.
All right, welcome back to beautiful Heathrow Country Club here. This is the third and final segment of our Terry Tallen podcast today with the great Lee Corso and Coach. Really been a pleasure to visit with you today. And, you know, you've Terry played for you back in the 70s, but back in the 50s was sort of your start to college football. It's, going on 70 years ago almost now. And
Matt, go ahead.
When you were just a little kid from Miami, you went to Florida State, and that was before Florida State was what they are.
Yeah.
But you were the Sunshine Scooter. You had a great running mate when you were a player at Florida State, and a great actor, Burt Reynolds. And you used to always joke that you guys were the most handsome backfield ever.
No, but he was a real good football player, and he got hurt. He hurt his knee. And he came back from there. Well, never forget. And he said, "Of course, I'm going to Hollywood to be a movie star." I said, "Yeah, sure." He did. He went. And he made it. He at one time, I think it was 3 or 4 years, he was the most watched movie star and most talented movie star in the world. And that was Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, he was the #1 box office draw for many years there.
Yeah.
He had a great run.
Yeah, and so those Florida State ties have served you well through the years. I know when you started working at ESPN, that's when things were really heating up for Coach Bowden. And I know, as I mentioned, before we started, I had 2 of my kids that are Florida State graduates, and I lived in Florida for 26 years. I was a Florida State season ticket holder even for a little while, which some of my Indiana fans still kind of hold against me for a little bit here and there. But you got to know Coach Bowden obviously very, very well. You guys were wonderful friends and had a long, long relationship with Coach Bowden.
Well, we started off, I tell these stories about Bobby Bowden. We coached against each other 3 times. He beat me once, I beat him once, and then we had to, I said, let me tell you about the story. In 1957, that's a lot of years ago, I was a graduate assistant at Florida State, and I was the head freshman football coach. And we played South Georgia Junior College. The head coach was Bobby Bowden. We beat him 20-7. So I told Bobby, I got 2 and you got 1. But Bobby Bowden, I think, I say this without question, Bobby Bowden was one of the most Christian and loving man ever to coach college football. There was nobody ever been more. He was a great man, and he was a great Christian, and he lived it more than anything. Probably more than anybody else in it.
Yes, he did. And of course, you coached in the Big Ten for a long time, so Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes kind of put you through the ringer a time or 2.
They did. My favorite to Woody Hayes stories, and we played them in booths and go out for the toss, flip the coin, we win the toss, and we get the ball, we move down the field, boom, threw a flat pass, guy picked up, Ohio State picked up, and went all the way for a touchdown. So it says, Ohio State 6, Indiana nothing, which is not too bad. So we get the ball again, move it down the field, and throw a touchdown pass, and make the score. Indiana 7, Ohio State 6. I walked across the field and I said, "We quit!" Guy says, referee says, "Well, why? What's the matter?" I said, "We quit." He said, "You can't go. Time out." I said, "Okay, time out. Take the team down to the end zone, all of them. I want a team picture, because I want to picture that Ohio State 6, Indiana 7. It's the first time we've been ahead of Woody Hayes in 25 years. And I want a picture to prove that." The photographer comes out to me and said, "You want another picture, Coach?" I said, "No, 47-7. Only too good." Oh, man, that's Woody Hayes. What a great guy he was.
Coach, there's another story similar to that you might want to tell, which was a great one when we played Iowa in 1980.
Oh, yeah.
And how we came back and what happened in halftime.
Well, we played Iowa, at Iowa, and it was halftime, 26 Iowa, 3 Indiana. 26-3 Iowa over Indiana. So I walked in the dressing room and I said, "I don't know you guys, but we're getting the hell kicked out of us. You can either come out and make the greatest rally in the history of football, or you stay in there for good." So I walked out, took the coaches, and walked down the field, and sat down. And the official came up and said, Coach, what are you doing? He said, call the Big Ten Commissioner, Wayne Duke. He said, what? Call him and tell him we're forfeit. We're not coming out here because we're not going to get beat. So help me God. Little by little, they come out. Clifford throws a touchdown pass to Lonnie Johnson. Indiana 30, Iowa 26. The greatest rally in the history of Indiana football in the Iowa League.
You remember that well
I
too?
sure remember that well, yes. Absolutely. That was my senior season, and it was a great way to start that season.
Oh, and that's the year he was in bowl game, right?
The year before.
The year before.
One thing that most people don't know about you that's an important thing I wanted to ask you about. When you were an assistant coach at Maryland and you recruited Darrell Hill to become the first African American player, not only at the University of Maryland, of course they were in the ACC then, but he was the first African American player to play in the ACC. You helped that, and you had a lot to do with that.
What happened is, sitting in the office, I'm the recruiting coordinator, and my boss, Tom Nugent, calls me in the office and said, I just got permission to recruit the first black athlete in the history of the South. And I said, oh man, he says, and you're going to get him. I said, why? He said, well, you're young enough and you can do it, you can do it. So I went to Earl Banks, the coach at Morgan State, and checked out them. And then I remembered, as a freshman coach at Florida, at Indiana, at Maryland, I coached against Navy. And they had a black kid, first black kid in the history of the Naval Academy, named Darrell Hill, playing wideout. So, boy, what a great kid. He was from Washington, D.C. So I said, Coach, I got an idea. I said, I want you to put in the paper that we're going to recruit the first black player. He said, okay. Why? He said, because I want his mother to see that. Because she sees that, she knows who it is. He put it in a paper. Darrell's mother calls me and said, you're interested in Darrell? I said, obviously, he's going to be the first black kid in the history of the Navy Academy. And therefore, he's got all the things we need. And I bought, so he said, okay, so I went and recruited Darrell. So I'm proud. And then not only that, he's a great businessman. He's been very successful in his life. And he's still, I communicate with him now, I recruited the first black kid in the history of the South.
It's a wonderful, wonderful story. You've more recently now always admired what Dick Saban has done at Alabama.
Yeah.
He's won more national championships than anybody, and you know, and I know you've, when the conversation goes to who's the greatest college football coach of all time,
Next season.
it's no-brainer now, right?
No, gee, I bet you don't know this. It's something you don't know. Not because of the national championships he's won 7 of them, which is more than anybody. But the number of assistant coaches he's helped get head jobs. He had 21. And I might be off of them, but I think I'm right. 21 of his assistants have become head coaches. Now, that is a lot more than anybody else. And I think that's the reason why he's the greatest coach in the history of college football.
And Kirby Smart, one of his assistants, finally beat him this year. He was the first assistant to ever beat him. So I think he liked beating up on his assistant coaches too.
Yeah, he liked that because he's got a lot of pride. And one thing about Alabama is back by 8 or 9 years, has won the national championship 4 or 5 times. They've never won it 2 times in a row. That's why last year I picked Georgia.
Yeah.
Alabama's never won since they've been 2 times in a row. So this year is Alabama's time. They're going to win the national championship, except Ohio State's going to beat them in the championship game.
Well, and you enjoy putting on the Georgia headdress, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of your favorite places, too.
That dog is ugly. But it's one of my favorite places to go.
Exactly, yeah. Well, Terry, wrap it up with Coach here. So we had this opportunity to spend some time with him, and you've talked to me often when we've done this about the 45-year friendship you've had with this man, how much it means to you, and how much you must thoroughly be enjoying sitting here with him today in 2022.
It's an absolute honor. I'm very grateful that you're here, your gracious extension of time with us today. You've had a material impact on my life, as you have for many others. And one of the things you said back at one of our Holiday Bowl reunions was that when a businessman dies, he leaves money. And when a coach dies, he leaves a little piece of himself in everyone that he coached. And that's something that you have done. And you've done it so well, my friend. I thank you.
Terry, first podcast I've ever done is this one because of you. And remember, don't forget, we'll close on this one. Never prostitute your integrity to get a job or to keep one.
That's exactly right. And on this, and when Coach and I are together, we always take a picture of us shaking hands. We've got about a dozen pictures of us shaking hands. So we'll wind up this episode today with a handshake. Thank you, my friend.
Nothing better. Nothing better than player and coach. Nothing better, too, for us, for the one and only time that Coach Corso has done a podcast, and he's done it here with us on the Terry Tallen podcast. So with that, Coach, thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Great job.
And thanks for everything, and thoroughly enjoyable show. People are going to love this.
When is this going to be on, by the way?
It'll be on in August at some point, before the season starts.
Great.
Yeah. So
Can't wait to see it.
yeah.
That's right.
So we'll have your Ohio State pick early. Yeah, exactly. So thanks you very much for being a part of it, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you on another great episode of the Talent Time podcast. We'll see you right down the road.